name is Yvonne Maxkin. I'm the founder and chair of the channel community and also the founder and CEO of CoCheer, a coaching and consulting practice, and also a channel community gold supporter. Welcome to the next episode of Smashing the Class Ceiling. In this series, I will be interviewing and showcasing some of the fantastic individuals that we have in the channel who have all come from a low socio-economic background, but also have gone on to build incredibly successful careers. They will be sharing their stories of how they navigated the corporate corridors and smashed through that class ceiling. So without delay, I would like to welcome my very next guest, Lindsy Betts. So Lindsy is the channel account manager at Reversing Labs, who's also a channel community silver supporter. So thank you, Lindsy. And Lindsy is incredibly passionate about channel partnerships, DE&I and mentoring. Thank you so much, Lindsy, for agreeing to come on the show and share your story with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Yvonne. I can't wait to chat to you today. Thank you so
No,
much.
I can't wait to get going as well. So, Lindsy, you and I met quite some time ago now, and it was at one of the very first channel community networking events that we hosted. So thank you for your early support. So we've got to know each other for quite some time now. And it's through these interactions that I discovered your passion for social mobility and had a little bit of an insight into your upbringing and where you've come from. However, most people won't have any idea of where you grew up or your story. So can we just start with that? Tell me about where you grew up and your early career.
Yeah, of course. Wow. I grew up in South Africa, which is a country that is pretty patriarchal, a little bit chauvinistic, has huge sort of aftermath of kind of racial inequality post-apartheid. So I was very privileged to be born white in South Africa, and I don't deny that that is, part of, why I'm here. However, I'm very passionate about diversity because of where I grew up and because of the things that I saw, the discrimination between, class, but not just class, race and gender. So I trained to be a teacher. I never wanted a career in tech. And it sounds very antiquated, but I think South Africa is like 20 years behind the rest of the world in a lot of ways. And we didn't really hear about tech, careers in tech as young women. My mum raised me pretty much on her own. My dad and my mum got divorced pretty early on. My dad was around, but he was kind of a Disneyland dad. So he kind of swung in and kind of did the good, cool stuff. And my poor mum picked up the pieces and drove us to school and helped us with every project. And anyway, that was my mum. And she'll tell you the story, it's her favorite story, of how I got through this divorce. I would just swim up to strangers in the pool, the local swimming pool, and go, my mum and dad are getting divorced, and my dad lives in a mansion, and we live in a shack now. And my mum would just want to like dive under the water and drown herself rather than like live with the shame. But yeah, she did a really good job. And I think I really want to just thank her. Like if she ever gets to listen to this, Yvonne, she'll be so happy that, you've got me thanking her because she's the reason I'm here. We didn't have a lot. We drove an old beat up car. She ran her own business. She instilled an amazing work ethic in me. And yeah, I think it's a really weird turn of events because I never thought I'd be here. Never thought I'd be working in tech.
So how on earth did you go from teacher to getting a job in the IT channel?
I mean, this is a question I get asked in every job interview, so it makes for a good story. I wanted to be a teacher to give back. I thought, how do you make social change? You go back, you teach at the grassroots, and you foster education. That is what Nelson Mandela taught us is the way forward: is educate people, give them the power to empower themselves. And so I thought that was going to be my big career. I was going to be in education. And it turns out, Yvonne, that I quite like money. And my friends took pity on me because I was earning a really ridiculously low wage. I was really earning very little money. And they had all done sensible things with their careers, and they were working in tech and they were making really good money. And they, for whatever reason, I think, tech attracts a certain kind of person, and they were quieter and more reserved. and they just needed somebody to come in and actually like run things and talk to people. And that's what I did. I worked for a reseller first, very small reseller in South Africa.
In South Africa, I was going to ask that. So thank
Yeah.
you. Do it.
No,
Yeah.
no. So very small reseller in South Africa. And they were very close with the Cyberome team. And Cyberome was acquired by Sophos. And the Sophos team offered me a job. And they said, would you like to be our channel account manager? And I was like, what's a channel account manager? I don't know what that is, but sure. Okay. Can I do it part-time? And they said, no, you have to choose. And at that time, I'd had a lot of heartbreak in teaching in Africa. It was a tough job. And I just thought, okay, I'll take a career break from teaching. I'll always go back to teaching, is what I thought. And I was like, if it's a complete disaster, I'll just go back to teaching. So I said to my husband, what do you think? And he was like, yeah, do it, do it, do it. So had the support of my family. My mum said to me, I think you're going to have to pretend a lot in this job. And I was like, absolutely. I don't know what I'm doing. No, none of us do. None of us do. That's the big secret in tech, is none of us know what we're doing. And see, my mum again giving me brilliant advice. She was like, just act your little heart out. When they say technical terms to you, just nod sagely and then go away and Google them. And the guys from Cyberome, to be very honest, Cyberome and then Sophos, they were fantastic, because what they did was they made me feel like it wouldn't be a technical job. It would just be chatting to people, enabling people. And that was what I was good at anyway, right? So they gave me the job, and the rest is kind of history, Yvonne. The rest is kind of history.
How did you go from that small reseller to Cyberome to Sophos to then to the UK? What brought you over? Because that's, quite an interesting shift.
Yeah, so I got to know the guys while I was working at the reseller. So I think they saw something in me. I think that's what we need to do as vendors today and as big companies today. We need to see the soft skills and the potential in people who maybe haven't been trained for careers in tech. So I got friendly with them in that they would, tell me about a product, and then I'd go and sell the product, and they'd be like, wow, you're doing a really good job at that. And as I said, I think they just saw some potential. They were like, well, she could make our lives easier if we recruit her. She'll come in, dust the office, turn on the lights, receive all the mail. And that's literally what I did. And I think that's why I'm addicted to startups, because even though Sophos is quite a big company here in the UK, out in South Africa at the time, it was like a startup. So it was brilliant. Like, it was just the 5 of us, and we doubled the market share, and it was really exciting. So after I'd worked in South Africa for Sophos for a little while, my husband and I were like, oh, do we want to raise children in South Africa? South Africa has quite a history of violence. And we were like, oh, don't know that we want to live here. I'd like to get some, international experience. My husband is also in the tech industry. And we just decided, we were like, no, we're gonna move. So again, teaching came up, and we could have moved to America, and I could have become a teacher. And then for whatever reason, a job came up within Sophos, so it was an internal transfer. And I kind of jokingly said, okay, well, I'll put my CV in, put it in the pile, I'll do the interview. I won't get the job this time because, it's no chance. But I'll know what to say in the next interview in like 6 months' time when we're really ready to move. And I got the job, and I had to get a visa, and I had to sell my house. And it was panic stations. I bought a TV, Yvonne, before I had a visa. I bought it on a Black Friday sale, and it went to live with my friend in a flat in London. And that's how I ended up in the UK. We bought a TV, and we were like, right, we have a TV, we need to move.
Wow. I absolutely love the fact that you went for it, even though you thought you had no chance of getting
I had no chance.
If just a fraction of individuals, especially women, did that, we'd be a much more diverse, technology industry that we are today, for sure. And it's just that, do you know what? What's the worst that can happen? Nothing. They say no, and that, I love that. That's absolutely brilliant and such an inspiration. And for anybody listening, take heed, because if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no, right? So well done. So then you actually ended up in the UK, and now you're at Reversing Labs. So that's been quite a. So how long have you been here now?
So that's a journey in itself. So being an immigrant isn't very easy. I came over here and my starting salary was, let's put it in the 20,000s. And I thought that was a lot of money. Coming from Africa, I was like, oh my gosh, that's an absolute fortune. And so we cashed in our life savings, which wasn't very much when you do the conversion. We got here and we were like, oh dear, that's not really as much money as we thought it was. Oh well, we're here now. And I got to work with some really lovely companies on the way to Reversing Labs. So I just kind of bumbled my way through, Yvonne, if I'm honest. I've learned tricks in every job, and I just took a chance in every job. So after that initial, like you say, taking a chance on myself and getting the job, I got really good at interviewing with tech companies, and I got really good at selling myself and products, and my jobs got better and better. I worked for Sophos in their solution team, which is quite a technical team, and I learned a lot there. And I learned from Sophos how to do channel, because they do it beautifully. They do it really, really well. They have a great channel plan, great channel partners. So that was really interesting. And then I went to a lovely company called CrowdStrike, which was such a good place to be. I joined pre-IPO, and it was just such a ride. And I think I got a little bit addicted to that because I didn't know how big CrowdStrike was going to be.
Yeah.
And it got so big so quickly. And it kind of, it reignited that fire for a startup, because we'd had that kind of feeling in South Africa. And this was like a startup all over again. And now I would say I'm pretty much hooked on startups, because they're the place for creative people who want to make a difference, where you kind of want to be your own CEO, and you know that things are going to be on fire some days, and you're going to have to put out fires, but it's a really exciting place to be. And I feel like most people think that it's unattainable to work at a startup, but it's actually such a good place to be, because you can really make a name for yourself. So that's kind of how I ended up Reversing Labs.
I think, again, you made a really good point about being your own CEO. I think startups are very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And, you have your own sort of remit to just get the job done, and a lot more flexibility and freedom that you probably do in other organizations. I think myself, this is why you and I probably get on so well, very much similar in that approach. I'd rather build things and fix things than just be part of something that's like the Titanic. I much prefer the speedboat.
Oh yeah, that is why we get along. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love that.
So what have been your biggest challenges that you've faced, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, well, I didn't know what a firewall was. When I went to work for Sophos, I didn't know what a firewall was. And truth be told, Yvonne, if you pinned me down now and asked me to explain one, I probably couldn't do it. I could tell you it's the first barrier of defense to your network, and I could tell you that, you really need one, but I couldn't actually tell you what it is. So I used to envision a wall of fire, and that's not what it is. I would say my lack of technical knowledge has been a huge stumbling block, but you can overcome anything if you're humble and you ask questions. And I have had the privilege of working with some fantastic SEs who just said, you probably know more than you think you know. Give it a go. And I think that's what you have to do in this job, is you have to pretend that you know more than you know. Admit when you don't know. You don't want to be on a sales call and go, oh yeah, we can absolutely protect you against that CVE, 100%. And then you talk to your technical team and they're like, no, we absolutely don't fix that. And you're like, oh. So I think it's about knowing enough to sound sensible and knowing when to step back. That's the balance. Yeah.
But also knowing who to go to and the people that are the experts that can bring you in, which is clearly what you've done. And I think it also identifies the fact that you don't need to be technical to be in this industry. I'll tell you a funny story. As you've mentioned, you didn't know about firewalls. I was early in my career in tech. I'd been in sales for many years, but it was early tech. And I was on the phone making lots of cold calls. And this guy said, okay, do you know anything about VAX? And I said, what, the Hoovers? I obviously, I mean, I'm old. I'm a lot older than you, but I wasn't that old. Apparently, Mac Fax was some old mainstream, like massive, like computer system that was really archaic. The phone went pretty dead after that, but it was quite funny. That story's never lived me down. Well, it does now because that company doesn't exist, but it took a while. It followed me around for a long time.
I
But
mean,
there
at
you go.
least we can laugh. At least we can laugh. I think if you
Yeah.
come from a place of humility, I was sitting in a meeting once and they were like, oh yeah, it's this SEP, SEP, SEP. And I was like, don't know what SEP is, but I'm just going to nod. We get out the meeting and I look at the guy and he's more junior than me. And I'm like, what is SAP? He's like, oh no, it's their endpoint. It's their specific endpoint. I was like, oh, the whole conversation. It's okay. Great. Lovely. So, you can build a pretty successful career off knowing very little.
Absolutely. And then learn as you go, right? And you do pick things up.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is the proudest moment of your career and why is that?
Oh, contentious one. So I've had the privilege of doing so many cool things. I've gone to lovely sales kickoffs. I've, won some prizes at some of them. I've, hit my target, smashed my target, not hit my target, but worked with some nice people. So I thought about this long and hard. And the best achievement of my career was when I was still working with pre-verbal and non-verbal children. And a little girl that I'd been teaching to count got up and counted to 10 like it was no big deal. And she
Oh,
hadn't said a word until she got up and counted to 10. And so,
oh wow.
yeah, that's the peak of my career. And it was 10 years ago. So best I start working on a new one.
No, that sounds incredible. And I can absolutely see why that would be. I mean, how you must have felt in that moment. I bet it brought tears to your eyes, didn't it?
It brings tears to my eyes now. And my husband likes to make the joke, they only started talking, Lindsay, to get a word in edgewise, because I can talk for England. Like I can absolutely talk for England. But that was
They'll start talking. She's not going to shut up, which is
she's not going to stop trying.
it's another reason why you and I get on so well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also we have faith in people. I had
Yeah,
faith in those children that they knew how to talk. They would get up when they were ready and count to 10. And she absolutely proved me right, little Zoe. So,
I
little
love,
Zoe, if you're listening to this and you're doing really well and you want a career in cybersecurity, I think you'd be very well suited.
I love that. I love that. So how do you think then that coming from a low socioeconomic background has impacted your career, either positively or negatively?
So interesting because I try and pretend that I'm not from a low social economic background. I
Don't
try
we
and
all?
I mean, you got to pretend, right? Like, and I think it's only a benefit because you don't discount anyone in the room. I think it's only a benefit because many people sometimes just discount people and they forget that, you get neurodiverse people, you get people who maybe just, don't look the part, but absolutely are the enterprise buyer. You just don't discount anyone when you're from a low social economic background, and you push yourself harder, you try harder than the rest, and you're tenacious. You just don't give up, do you? You're like, this will
Yeah.
happen if I keep going. Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. These are the definitely things that are coming out consistently across all of the different conversations that I'm having.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I'm like you. I do think, while it's impacted me in certain areas not so positively, 90% of it has been a positive, because of the things that you've just said, about resilience, work ethic, treating everybody with respect and as an equal, and not having hierarchy and thinking that somebody's better than you, and knowing that we should all be treated with the same and also have the same opportunities. So no, I totally get that. So knowing what you know now and everything that you have achieved, what would you say to a younger version of Lindsay?
Ooh, start your tech career earlier. Learn some more acronyms. I don't know. I would say to everyone, not even just to a younger Lindsay, is just to treat people like you would want to be treated. And I've always done that. I think there's nothing in my career that I would go back and change, except starting earlier, because I think, that's the key, is start early, learn in high school that you can do this, take yourself very seriously as a young woman. I read a lovely quote the other day, assume that she's technical and breathes fire. And I loved it, because there are so many women in this industry who've completely inspired me, because they are technical and they do breathe fire. And even if they're not very technical, they do breathe fire. And I once had the privilege of witnessing a woman put all the men in the room back in their respective places. And she did it so, so sweetly. She was like, I understand absolutely everything that you've just said. So stopping the meeting for my benefit isn't necessary, because he had very mistakenly assumed she was not the economic buyer. And he said, oh, well, Susie's head looks like it's about to catch fire. Shall we take a 5-minute break? And Susie just very quietly put him in his place and was like, no, I've understood absolutely everything you've said, and we can continue. My time is precious. And I was just like, oh. It was really good. I've seen women back other women, if somebody's gone, oh, why is she on leave again? Somebody kindly put up their hand and go, oh, I think you'll find it's parental leave. And, just put that manager neatly back in his box. So I'd say to younger Lindsay, or to anybody, just back yourselves, back your friends, and assume that she's technical and breathes fire.
I love that. I love that. So what support and help do you think that companies could be doing to help individuals that do come from a low socioeconomic background?
This is the toughest question, I think, because I think they want to do more. I think companies generally want to support people. I don't think they know how. And I think it's down to individual managers. I've had some pretty terrible managers. I'm sure you have in your day as well. I've had some pretty terrible ones, and I've also had some brilliant ones. And the brilliant ones were the ones who took the time to check that I was okay and that I understood things. So, I mean, an example of this is I moved to the UK and I didn't know how to use the transport system. It sounds like it's my problem, right? But when I'm an hour late for every meeting, it's kind of the company's problem. And if you kindly take me aside and go, I think you should leave an hour earlier, I'll listen to you and do that. I mean, I learned that on my own in the end, but kind managers get the best from their people. So I would always say, if you're a manager in a company and you're trying to encourage people who maybe haven't got that background to do better, nurture them. Treat them like the new kid on the block. Treat them with respect. Don't call them an idiot for not knowing how to use the train. I mean,
Yeah.
where I come from, the trains are on fire. So the fact that they would arrive, I was like, oh, great. I didn't realize that you could be delayed at signals. I didn't realize all of these things. So I would say, don't treat them like an idiot, but in the nicest way, make them feel like they can make mistakes, that they won't be punished for them, but teach them from those mistakes so that they can be better.
I love that. Such great advice. And what one piece of advice would you give to someone that does come from a low social economic background but is trying to navigate a career in the channel?
Oh, just have pluck, just have gumption, just say the thing that nobody else in the room is saying. Ask the silly question, make the statement, try. What I love about working in startups is we throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall and we see what sticks. We get to make mistakes, we get to fail fast, but if you keep trying, that's when you eventually you win. You hit that tipping point. I mean, Malcolm Gladwell talks about it, but I think it's just true of anything. When you push enough energy into something and you really want it, you will hit that goal. You almost can't miss. It's great.
No. Well, I always used to say, throw enough mud, not spaghetti. So that's a new one for me. I don't know. I don't know if you prefer mud or spaghetti.
I
Probably
think
spaghetti's nicer.
I think it's from my American colleague, Mandy. If you're listening, spaghetti at the wall is what you taught me. And it's true, when spaghetti's done, it sticks to the wall. So I think like
Yeah.
when the spaghetti is like al dente, you fling it at the wall, and if it sticks, then it's good. So it's the Americans. They've taught me something.
Well, the English version, the one I've always grown up with and used is throw enough mud and some of it will stick. So, as with most of the listeners might be English, potentially,
Nice.
we'll go with both. Spaghetti, mud, doesn't matter. Either or, just throw it.
Throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
See what sticks.
I mean, I like the mud one too. It just sounds like messier, but I like the mud one as well.
Yeah. I don't mind a bit of mess, Lindsay. Lindsay, you have well and truly smashed the class ceiling. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Oh, thank you.